I'm making this kind of on a whim after seeing this a few times. The videos in question are Marshal Does Stuff's video on the Cinemassacre retro metal band Rex Viper and 2 videos from Mic The Snare. One is a live rant about the discourse around Tortured Poets Department, and the other is about Maroon 5. The Marshal Does Stuff video was the second I watched from him and was about Rex Viper and their backlash. However, towards the end, he goes on a tangent about how people are too eager to hate and how the hatred the band gets is not deserved.
I mean, if you look at how much fun these guys are having, and then you scroll down and look at all the vitriol in the comments, personally I start to wonder, is this hate really necessary? And even beyond modern Cinemassacre's issues, Rex Viper is getting so much hate online for the heinous act of making bad music. And this is a similar kind of discussion that comes up when we talk about bands like Imagine Dragons or Nickelback or AJR. These are all bands that have had big hits, they have dedicated fan bases, but also they are universally hated to the point where they are bullied, booed off stages, and even sometimes physically assaulted.
The 2 Mic The Snare videos were what inspired this quickie here, but in the Tortured Poets Department video, it was about Mike noticing people on Twitter.com loudly proclaiming their hatred for Swift and wanting to be hired to write about it.
To talk about it. When the album first got announced at the Grammys, I saw some writer folk who were like, hey, hire me on so I can pan this record for you. And it's like, isn't that a little depressing for the folks at home? That you're like already saying you hate a record before you've heard even a second of the music contained within. Here's the other thing too. I think the idea that she is some insane monolith is a very American-focused mindset. Because I talk with people who don't live in the US and they say she's not that big outside of the US. She's big, of course, like she's still a massive pop star. With Taylor is an American thing on both ends, whether you like adore her to no end or you like want to see her metaphorically ripped apart by the wolves. There's just such a hunger for negativity online, or some people might call it criticism, but it's really negativity. Like you have to disassociate the thing that you want in the world versus how people will respond to it. The internet is a bunch of hungry jackals, and if you give them something, they will take it for their worst purposes.
And then the Maroon 5 video ends with this.
This leads into reason number 1 why I think Maroon 5 is still around. They are really good at being scapegoats. In a world where stan culture dominates, I think Maroon 5's value to some is just being a guilt-free punching bag. The final reason, and this one might piss you off, is that people still actually like Maroon 5. Throughout this video, I found good from each album. Not every album in total is a winner, for sure, and not much will blow your mind if you're a nerd for music like me, but there are still songs to enjoy, and plenty of people seem to agree. The chart placements, the tour revenue, all of that has to be coming from someone, the silent majority, if you will. So maybe that's it. Lots of people still like the band, the world is bigger than the loudest voices on the internet, and there is usually good to be found, even in bad bands.
Side note, I'm kind of sick of videos using Twitter as a source for some general concept or social behavior because it's Twitter. You're going to be shown the most annoying things that get the most interaction. That's how it works. If you don't like it, get off. It's a small thing, but let me address their main criticism first from their perspective because I understand it a bit. For one thing, there is a lot of negativity on the internet and in music discourse. There is a problem with people being primed to put down something they don't see as worthwhile and not giving it a chance. There is also, inversely, a problem with toxic positivity and how people also want everything to be coded in positivity because the world is too negative. I get both arguments, but I strongly dislike both. Being somebody who listens to music that I don't tend to see much in discussions, I understand the mindset that discussion is too negative or too positive, but these are extremes in certain circles and mostly related to the internet and social media, also not helpful. In terms of negativity, while I do get the disdain for it, I don't think the people who only want to indulge in negativity are, like, bad. I actually don't mind negative breakdowns provided they are insightful and interesting. If that's what those people want, then so be it. Yeah, there are people who take it too far and are just assholes.
When the album first got announced at the Grammys, I saw some writer folk who were like, hey, hire me on so I can pan this record for you. And it's like, isn't that a little depressing for the folks at home?
In the case of toxic positivity, my perspective at least, I strongly dislike the way people are encouraged to always be positive. I can get that it can get numbing and tiring to be constantly flooded in negativity. I've been in that kind of community before. However, the inverse is equally exhausting because it creates an almost cult-like mentality to ignore bad things and only praise what you're talking about. which can get exhausting if you don't feel as strongly towards what everyone else is. They're both complex and may need separate videos to explore. Focusing on Marshal first, I did watch his video on Redvox, and to be honest, I like that video. Though I'm not in the same kind of culture he subscribes to, I do like his video on the subject, and I think it's cool he got to experiment out of his comfort zone. In that case, he listened to his own point about negativity and made a video about something he's passionate about. In the case of the band, I don't have any strong feelings on Rex Viper. His point about people being mean for the sake of it, especially towards the one guy, is fine. I have no problem with that. However, Rex Viper are not owed respect. They aren't that great of a band, they do video game covers and metal riffs, and their shows were mediocre from what I've heard. It's good that they are getting better, but I can't really subscribe to the endless negativity tangent because the band aren't owed praise. It's just the truth. I'll touch on this when I go over the bands we hate one day. Also, knowing this band was formed at a production company certainly doesn't help, but it's not like it's the band's fault. If it's a passion project and the band doesn't care, then it should stay that way. If they get better, then good. If not, well, I don't know what else to say. I have much stronger feelings on the Mic The Snare case. I watched him between 2020 and 2022 before I stopped because, honestly, I can't stand his suckling for the most popular. For context, I discovered him through his Outsider music videos and his Hyperpop video. I remembered watching his album compilation series, and I watched him gloat over Adele and skip over Lil Nas X. Perhaps it was because most of my friends were shitting on Montero, but man, was I sick of hearing how famous and popular Adele was. It was small, but enough for me at the time. Plus, I was getting really sick of pop culture. I've aged out of that, but my main issue with his pop bias has not gone away. It gets tiring to see people dismiss most art in favor for only pop culture art. To be fair, we are very different people with very different circumstances. I get why things are popular too. Nick the Rimshot might just be a less miserable person than I, but after watching these videos, I had to say this. Having him be this defensive kind of struck a nerve in me. Side note, I understand the over-negativity side, especially with the more bigoted side of this discussion. Again, I'm not really talking about that because that's a different issue and has nothing to do with music specifically. I'm talking about music fandom, not anti-woke dogshit slop. I'm not going to pretend I'm some saint in this context, but I do try to make videos on more obscure and niche subjects. I'm not immune to pop culture, but I'm also very slow. Microphone does make videos on alternative subjects, and I usually respect those videos. Sometimes the guy makes really insightful videos. I cited multiple of them in my music streaming video. At the same time, my point isn't personal. Let me be clear about both these artists. I did not choose to start hating them. I worked in retail hell between 21 and 23. Let me be very clear that hearing Maroon 5's Don't Wanna Know while being berated for not having cocktail sauce can really make you hate a song on a new level, especially if you hear again and again and again. The same applies for being yelled at by sarcastic yuppies while Morgan Wallen's Last Night We Had the Laker Town plays for the millionth time. This applies to a lot more than Maroon 5, mind you, but I have been hearing every single Maroon 5 hit again and again because the label owns the radio and they make the most money through it, either through ads or networking. I did not choose to hate Maroon 5, it just happened over time because I kept hearing them. If they wanted to avoid it, they didn't have to make two of the worst albums of our generation the most popular. I'm not going to owe them respect because they were successful. Of course they were successful. They made pop slop. I had Don't Wanna Know, Sugar Animals Payphone, What Lovers Do, Memories, oh my god, Memories, and Girls Like You etched into my brain no matter where the fuck I went. Don't you dare try to make me seem like an asshole for not liking them. Go make your fucking lattes at home, bitch! For Swift, it came more from overexposure for an album I didn't care about in a year I personally felt was grueling and disconnected to get through. I still don't like the album, but even for her recent album, I just don't feel she's owed praise for that reason. Yeah, the hatred's kind of annoying, but it's mostly from dick riders. They always come. I really came out swinging against Midnights because Taylor basically won the year. Midnights became the biggest album of that year, and after listening to it, I don't understand it. Yeah, Morgan Wallen's thing was bigger, but no one gives a shit about him. Except me, because I hate him. I was not tapped into pop music in that year, by the way, and I was still hearing about it. The news said she stimulated the economy, because only when the 1% do it are we allowed to celebrate it. Dick Cheney would be proud. Is it unfair? Yes. Remember who the one benefiting from this one-sided interaction is. I'm not saying Stick the Bear should not defend ostracized acts. I understand the challenge to defend Maroon 5, but Maroon 5 are not Nickelback, Coldplay, or AJR. And, look, bad bands deserve a voice, as do anyone. But, like, come on, don't you fucking be a smug cunt about it. There are reasons people hate these bands. Maroon 5 are a band who composes truck commercials. They make annoyingly vapid earworms that everyone knows but nobody likes. Yes, they have good songs, and it's fine to show that, but those good songs are not why people are sick of the band. I once heard a story from my dad about the band Guano Apes, big around the late 90s, early 2000s, and he found them on Pandora while browsing, but never heard them once on the radio at the time. That's not me saying this is a problem because Guano Apes aren't popular, more the issue with the mythical meritocracy put on the most successful. They are popular for a reason, yes, but they are also disliked for a reason. And dismissing the people who hate them as just annoying assholes is like really entitled, especially in the case of Maroon 5, a band that makes music no one likes because it's hollow. No one likes mediocrity. Last note, let people hate. I understand that some people take it too far, and those people suck, absolutely, call them out. However, don't force people to like things based on your preference. People grow sick of being told to like something, and sometimes people just don't like something. That's it. Let it go. Sometimes people like something. Let it go. If you like Rex Viper, Taylor Swift, or Maroon 5, that's fine. And if you dislike them, that's fine. No one is owed success, and fame is something nobody earns. More is something that just happens. Rex Viper doesn't deserve the harassment just from having bad music. Neither do Swift or Maroon 5. But bad music isn't really why people grow to hate them. And there's a lot more to what makes these bands excessively popular that people get sick of. It's not fair, but that controversy always trickles back up. It always comes back to help those same bands. To be fair, both the two admit this complexity, because the subject of both toxic negativity and toxic positivity are a lot more complex than I can make out. I'd like to make a video on bands that we hate. For now, I want to make this point. Let people hate. The world is frustrating and unfair, and sometimes an unhinged, maybe harmless rant about how terrible Don't Want to Know is the catharsis needed to get through the day a little more. The videos that are made just to make the world worse, you don't have to like those. But sometimes people just get sick of being exposed to the most popular things over and over and expected to put on a smile for it. Sometimes you just listen to something and you're like, I hate this.